Freedom is not free. Discover what it takes. It's time to tap and move forward.
Hello and welcome to Tap and Move Forward. I'm your host, Lynn Shelley. Today's guest started training to be a pro wrestler starting at age 16. He later put his dream on hold to join the Army. He deployed as a machine gunner and was nominated for the Bronze Star and Combat Action Badge for actions against the enemy. In this episode, he talks about his struggles reintegrating into society and using his pro wrestling as an outlet to navigate PTSD and to help other veterans. His documentary Valhalla Club is now on Amazon and it's awesome. If you want more of his stories or to learn about his work, please watch it. I really enjoyed it and I definitely recommend it. For this episode's skill set challenge, Jan challenges everyone to 5 seconds of craziness. Take a big action that only takes 5 seconds. Talk to someone you normally wouldn't. Sign up for an event you've been wanting to. Do something you have been holding back on. Just let yourself have 5 seconds of craziness that will give you a new experience. Now the interview with Jan Ohrstrom. Why did you join the military and how old were you?
I was 20. Yes, I was 20 when I joined the military. I joined after 9/11. I was in college at the time. I was going to go to school. I was in college to be a video game designer. I was really big into art. And 9/11 happened. And after a couple months, I decided I couldn't just stand by anymore, and I wanted to go serve my country for that time. So I enlisted as a 63 Bravo, which I don't think they have anymore. I think they got reclassed. It was a heavy wheel mechanic, and shipped off to basic training like 6 months later. June of 02 is when I enlisted. Actually, tomorrow is the anniversary of me enlisting. June 6, 2002 is when I went in.
Wow. So did you join then because you just felt like inspired after September 11th? You really wanted to do something to fight back?
Yeah, well, it was that was the main reason. It was crazy, like many of us, like when we saw what happened on TV, right? And the subsequent actions that later rolled out with Afghanistan and the whole country, everything had shifted, right? Socially and economically and all that. And me being like a student and at that time a very young pro wrestler, it was weird. I felt that I wanted to be a part of something. Like our country was changing and I didn't want to sit back. I wanted to be in the game, not on the sidelines. And it was a decision I had dealt with and wrestled internally with for a while, because going into the Army, I knew I was giving up college for a while, and B, giving up the pro wrestling thing for a while. And that was like that was my dream since I was 4 years old. But I felt whatever was going on was too great to just ignore. And so I went in.
Did you find anything really surprising, or was it about what you expected when you joined, or was there anything that you're like, my recruiter could have let me know this?
My recruiter, I'll be honest, he was pretty good. I was actually his first recruit out of recruiting school.
Oh, wow.
And he was pretty open. He's like, look, a lot of it's going to suck. You're just going to roll with it. And that did help. I will say, though, the thing that I thought was crazy was when you think of an outsider looking at the military, you think very like organized and precision and discipline, all that stuff. And there definitely is a lot of that, but there's a lot of like disorganization that I thought was kind of eye-opening to me. Not in a bad way. It was just one of those, just kind of like crazy. The Army is such a melting pot of people and experiences. So like when you're used to living one kind of way and then you get thrown in and you got to adapt and adjust and just kind of roll with stuff, it gets eye-opening, but not in a bad way. I wouldn't say it's a bad way.
Right, but it was maybe a little bit of a surprise.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Very, very much so. Very, very much so. So and then I had just like little internal ones, like a guy in my unit, like calling him by his first name instead of his last name. You know what I mean? And the drill sergeant's getting on you for that. Just little stuff like that. Like when you come in, it's kind of like eye opening. Like, oh shit, I can't talk like this, or I can't act like this. You know, like it was kind of a interesting experience.
How did you like your job?
I hated it. I hated it. Yeah, no. When I went in, I went through AIT, and that part was fine. But like when we got to our unit, we uh, we weren't there that long before we got the notice that we were going to deploy. And when we were deploying, I got moved from being a mechanic to a 50 cal machine gunner. And then we did our deployment, which was 13 months. And then we got back, and our unit was shutting down, so they didn't have a job for me. So I just kind of did whatever. So my 4-year enlistment, I was only a mechanic for maybe a year. So it was fine, I guess. I didn't like doing stuff like changing stuff out in the field in Germany in the middle of winter. That sucked. But like, I really didn't have anything. I just kind of did whatever the Army needed.
So the Army kind of just told you like it was a forced reclass?
I wasn't reclassed. My MOS was still 63 Bravo. I just was a machine gunner from there on out.
They just
Like,
give you a different duty.
yeah.
Necessarily fall under. Well, and they say that, right? When you're enlisting, there's essentially you get to be used however.
However, yeah, it's like it was a really, I mean, it was a really interesting experience of just rolling with the punches, because I was somebody who was very much like, I wanted a plan, you know what I mean? I wanted to schedule, I liked the structure, you know, and all that other stuff, and to kind of have to adjust was not in my wheelhouse, and I had to roll with that. And I mean, thankfully it turned out all right, but it was definitely one of those, you really got to just kind of go with it and make the best of it. There you go. That's probably the best way to say it. You got to make the best of it.
Yeah, well, if you want to enjoy your experience, you really do have to figure out how to make it. So did you deploy more than once?
No, we had field. I went to the field, like I guess you can say it was deployed. We got sent to a training mission in the Czech Republic once, but I just had the one Iraq deployment for 13 months.
And how was that?
It was one of those, like at the time, I didn't think it was that bad, but like looking back, we were not in a really good area at a really good time. 2004 was one of the bloodiest years in the Iraq War, and we saw a lot of chaos and a lot of bad stuff out there. Um, it's hard not to look back and be like, how did I like make it? Because there's multiple times where like a convoy that went out as soon as I came in got hit, like the convoy before us got hit, the vehicle in front of me got hit. It was like I was always around all this stuff, but but at that time I didn't think anything of it. I'm like, well, I'm not hit, you just move on. But like looking back, you're like legit, like how did I miss that window by 30 seconds, by 2 minutes that, you know, I could have been in a really bad spot. But I'm glad I went through what I did, and I'm glad I was with the people that I was with, because those are experiences and friendships that will last a lifetime, for good and bad.
Have you read the book Tribe or heard of it?
That was by Sebastian Unger, right?
Yes, yes.
I have been recommended by many people to read it. I haven't yet. He was just actually talking about with Jordan Klepper on the Valhalla Club stuff that we did on Jordan Klepper's podcast, and I wanted to reach out to him about that. But I've heard good things about the book.
Yeah, I thought it was excellent, but it talks a lot about the different mindsets and what people go through, and I think it really talks too about what's right with the military and those people, and like the people, well, anybody who's gone through some sort of extreme warlike scenario.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it really helps bring in a more understanding mindset about the whole thing, which I just thought it was great. Anyway, I thought I'd ask. Do you want to talk more about your deployment?
Yeah, sure. We can talk about that. Can you hear me? Because you're kind of starting to freeze a little.
Really? I can hear you okay.
Okay, good. Just want to make sure. Yeah. So the deployment, my experience in the deployment was kind of the basis to what later became the foundation for the documentary that I produced a couple years ago called the Valhalla Club. Um, when you go to war, it's you can prepare for it, but mentally, like it's still hard to like understand. Like you and I, it's hard for us to kind of talk to somebody with no military experience. You know what I mean? To explain the military to somebody with no military experience, right? Same thing goes for deployments. Um, and so going through what we went through, I'll give you an example here. Like it just permanently changes you. Like on June 1st, 2004, I was stationed in Beijing, Iraq, and June 1st, 2004, my convoy was leaving a gate while another convoy was coming in, and in the middle of all this, a car bomb ran the gate, and it killed. I think the official count is 32 Iraqi civilians. So there's a couple of things that I always look on this date, which the anniversary literally just passed, and every June 1st, it's always in my head. Was that the car like drove right by me, like within a couple feet from me, from my other vehicles in the convoy, and uh, like I said, there's a lot of death, and it's one of those like when you see all this stuff firsthand, you witness this stuff firsthand, and you come back, it's really difficult to relate, and it's really difficult to process, compartmentalize, and try to adjust, right? And that was just that one event. I unfortunately lost a few friends out there. I had some friends that were injured. One of my really good friends, Rob Harding, he took a blast and he's missing like 3/4 of his arm from the blast. And when you get to witness this stuff, it changes you. Um, it's not a good thing or a bad thing. It's just a thing. And uh, moving forward with deployments, when I've talked to people with the Valhalla Club stuff is that since people struggle with compartmentalizing and processing this stuff, it builds up. And I think now as a society, we're getting to a better spot of having this social conversation and looking at different ways to kind of decompress. The go-to for a long time was pills that was administered by private physicians at the VA, and that kind of got out of hand really bad. And I think people are turning more homeopathic and alternative remedies, whether it be shooting, racing cars, drawing, painting, whatever, as a good way, a good creative outlet for that. So tie this all back to deployments, like that deployments, when stuff was getting too tense on deployments, I always found myself working out. I always found myself drawing, playing video games, something to kind of put people's mind out. And when I have talked to people who are still in, the younger guys, which is crazy because there's guys, I actually talked to one guy a couple weeks ago. He's just turning 17 and going basic training. And he was asking me about what happens if he goes over there. And I just tell people, I was like, look, you have to find that relaxed time and you have to just kind of not get through it, like suck it up, but it's like, you just got to push yourself to go through this stuff, no matter how good and how hard it gets. My deployment challenged me on many different levels, mentally a lot, but physically, I always found myself, it's really easy when you get done from a mission to just want to sleep. But I couldn't do that because I always found myself in a situation where I had to carry somebody 100 yards, 200 yards, or wherever, and chaos happens. That actually happened a few times where we got hit and ambushed. And so then I started going to the physical routes too, of working out and all this other stuff, just stuff to push yourself through. And I think a lot of people in these deployments are kind of using the same thing. And I urge people, when you deploy, to keep that same positive mentality and push yourself through and find these outlets. Don't just sit around, because then you're going to get bored, or if you just saw something traumatic, it's going to eat away at you. It will. It happens a lot. It's one of the reasons why PTSD is what PTSD is. It's a traumatic thing you witness, and your brain is kind of trying to figure out how to push stuff through. With that all being said, I don't regret, enlisting. My deployments, like I mentioned, the people I served with, some of these people are like my friends for life. I got to go be a part of something that very few people got to be a part of, and nobody can take that away from me and from the men and women who have been over there.
You mentioned your documentary, The Valhalla Club. What is it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So when I got out of the service in 2006, I was struggling with PTSD. I still struggle really bad to this day, but it was really bad in '06 and '07. And I left service and I was pro wrestling again, and I was going to college. And I was at that time, I was like the only guy who had been in combat that was pro wrestling on the West Coast. I was wrestling all over California and Arizona and a few parts of Texas, like El Paso and stuff like that. And I had a lot of people talk to me about they had cousins over there, nephews, brothers, whatever, and it was a really kind of supportive, cool networking thing. But internally, I was struggling bad. I was drinking a lot. At my worst, I was drinking 20 beers a night, like every night, and it was very self-destructive. And it was getting to the point where it was affecting my relationship with my daughter at that time, and I was very angry. Like I'm grateful I never did anything like drink and drive or do anything crazy like that, but I was just killing myself. I mean, that's the way about it. On top of all this time, I had a buddy, Justin Estes. Even though I got out, he stayed in. He went back to Iraq and he was killed. And there's a couple other people who I lost too that I'd served with. So all this stuff kind of builds up, right? And it's a really, if you don't process this and you just use kind of alcohol just to kind of ignore it, it kind of builds up, builds up, builds up, and then it explodes. And that was what was happening with me. So I reached out to the VA and I started going through alcohol stuff and talking to somebody about it. And as I was doing that, I started focusing on pro wrestling again because pro wrestling was a real positive outlet for me. Physically, you had to be in really good shape. So that means I couldn't drink, I couldn't eat crap food. I had to be committed, right? And then mentally, you have a character in pro wrestling and you start going into like how you want to build this character. How are you going to relate to an audience? How are you going to sell merchandise? How are you going to have this social media presence? How are you going to network yourself to other promoters? Very similar to like being a band. And so I started focusing on all of this, and I was using, like when I was upset about different things that I went through in Iraq and struggling with a lot, like I started using this more and more as my therapy, as my outlet. And then all that comes into me going like, I want to take this story and I want to put it on a big medium, right? I want to put it on a national level. But I didn't want it to be about just me. And as I was working more and more in pro wrestling, I came across more and more veterans who had been through Iraq or Afghanistan, and just bonding with them, like more and more people were telling me they had similar experiences, and we started opening up about the stuff we had saw and the struggles with and all that stuff. And while I was wrestling in Texas, I met two guys, Eddie Wittern and Bryson Scott, and we were just kind of going everything one day, and I just said, it came in my head to pitch it. So I told them about this idea for the Valhalla Club, this documentary where they'll follow me and them too, as we talk about what we went to in Iraq and pro wrestling and stuff like that. They hopped on board with like no questions asked, which was amazing. And we went and we filmed it. And it was a documentary we filmed over 3 months. We did it very indie style, like shoestring budget, everything we could to save money to make this thing done. We did. And then we released it in January of 2017. And then we've had it on Amazon now for a year. And it has been a crazy journey. It's a crazy journey. We have a lot of veterans that have reached out to us and talked to us about like their own outlets, which has been awesome. We've had people talk to us about, my dad was a Vietnam vet and he struggled greatly, and I'm glad that you guys reached out and trying to help people like this. And that was really positive. And then other stuff, like we got covered by Rolling Stone, Vice, Sports Illustrated, Telemundo, ABC. We were on Good Morning America, Daily Show. And then we had this big thing with Jordan Klepper where we had the whole episode of his new show was about us and doing pro wrestling, as he was trying to assist us in bringing this discussion of PTSD to a national conversation. And then after that, I did an interview with the Department of Veteran Affairs on their official podcast, and it was cool to see that get sent out to like 2.4 million people. That was really awesome. And it's been a positive experience, but it's also a very vulnerable experience because you have to open up about what you've been through, and that can be very challenging. And that was one of the things that I just had to force yourself to go through it because you're trying to help other people. Oh, sorry, that was long-winded.
No, don't apologize. Well, and that's how I heard about you, because I got the email from the VA that was talking about you, and I was like, wow, this guy's amazing. But um, also, Sebastian Younger in that book, he talks about how important it is that we allow veterans to talk about their experiences in war, and that we, as a society, that we honor and respect their stories and their experiences. So there is a little bit of a social stigma, and there is, I can understand the difficulty in talking about it, but it takes a lot of courage to be one of the pioneers that's leading that movement. So
Can I ask you a question? Because I want to piggyback on what you just said, but I have a question for you, if that's all right.
okay, yeah.
With when you're interacting with veterans or your listeners or your hosts, like, and they're wanting to have this conversation with you about not only like military life expectations, but like life in general. Because correct me if I'm wrong, like you have a motivational undertone to your show.
Right.
How do you push that conversation in that direction?
I guess so. To seemingly go on a little bit of a tangent, I've talked before about if you know who Tim Ferriss is, he'll say that you're you can you're complaining if you just whine about something, but you can talk about something in real life the way that it is, and you're not complaining as long as you follow it up with some sort of plan of action.
Okay.
So I think that it's important that we talk honestly about the big picture, and that we hear truthful responses about people's experiences, even if it's difficulty with leadership on like a smaller side, or on the more extreme, like your situation where it's like the PTSD from combat. Whatever it is, I think we should be honest about it, but I just want to see it followed up with, like in your case, you're taking action. You're doing something to give back. You're not only doing something for yourself, but you're doing something to give back on a larger scale, which is inspiring and interesting and valuable. And you're giving people actual tangible things that they could do to follow to be better prepared or better suited. And that's really what I'm looking for, is what are the tactics or the mindsets that really help somebody, even though it's sucky, it's a shitty situation. There's also, like, the military's favorite phrase is "embrace the suck," because it's such a common undercurrent of the job. And so it's really about trying to give back to the new recruits or the rising ranks to understand what that means.
Right on. Right on. That's cool. What I was going to, why I asked, because I was kind of curious, like one of the things that I've felt, this is obviously PTSD and mental health is like it's a sensitive conversation topic, right? Because you don't want to put anybody down for what they went through. At the same time, what I've always been very clear about, it's not about pro wrestling, it's just about mental health. And having, like, because we've had people come up to us and say, well, I don't want to do pro wrestling, and so, but I like your story, which always translates into me going, well, what do you like to do? Like, pro wrestling works for me, but that's just me. It doesn't have to work for everybody, and it's really not. Pro wrestling is so hard on your body, it's ridiculous. And I don't think anybody should just get thrown around in a ring. And that kind of leads into different stuff. And what I like is it shifts the conversation off of me, but it puts it onto them. So we start having this like introspective conversation about what helps them. And but then it's cool because then I think kind of what you said, the plan of action, then leaving that conversation, like this person knows where they got to go, what they got to do, kind of at least have a good idea and start working towards that. It's really hard to bring this around, and we've had, I'll give you an example, a guy was talking to us we had a screening in Texas here at a theater, and afterwards, a guy came up to me and he was like, I have severe PTSD. I was raped in service. And
Wow.
that's one of those things that's horrible. Anybody who goes through that, man or woman. But it's also one of those, you kind of don't know how to go about that, right? So this is where this sensitivity comes into play. And to me, like, I just like want to support, men and women who have been through this. And it's for them, to somebody open up on something serious like that. And I hope your listeners like catch this. If somebody opens up to you on something that serious, uh, respect the conversation. Just kind of let them talk. They're trying to vent to you about something, and just let it move forward, and then shift it into like how we, not say move on, but where does the healing go from here? You know what I mean? And I think if one has that mindset of this motivation of trying to get better, I'll say it right. I think you'll come across the right people who will be supportive of you, which will in turn help your healing process of whatever it is, whatever the mental health issue is.
The military really has become a great support. There's so many available resources now. I think that it really was on the shoulders of the Vietnam vets, honestly, that created a big shift for the military, and it's taken time because I think it's started with them,
Mm-hmm.
and how the military didn't have the support, or both socially and as a structure, and then over time they've understood how, as a society, we've gotten much better, and the military as a government entity has gotten much better at supporting its members. And now, I mean, there's chaplains and counselors and psychologists and so much that is just readily available just because you're in the military. It's awesome, honestly. So there's so many avenues to support people these days.
Mm-hmm.
I did have a psychologist on that was he deployed as a psychologist in the Air Force, and then now he works with veterans. And I still love the way that he talked about it, because he was saying that in the military we talk about how to take care of our weapon and all of the things that go into making sure that it's working properly. And really, we just need to see ourselves as that same type of weapon, where we need to take care of all of the different moving parts to make sure that it's effective and that we don't have misfires or trouble with it. So
I like that. I like that analogy. Yeah.
It fits with the military mindset, it shows. For some reason, we don't really want to take care of ourselves so much. But with that analogy, it kind of inherently inspires why you would need to take care of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So, are there things from your military career that help you be a better pro wrestler?
Yes. Obviously, the military being very physical helps. It's funny because like one of the biggest things about pro wrestling is that the promoters will tell you, well, you're going to be on the road a lot. You're going to be, if you especially go to a place like WWE, like you're gone from your family all the time. I'm like, I was gone for 13 months. Like, I know how to be away from my kids for a little bit. And besides my daughter's a teenager now, so I'm pretty sure she'll like her dad being gone. So, the mentality, I guess you said, the mental toughness is very parallel. You really, to be a successful pro wrestler, you're really only going to make it if you like have the drive and determination. And you got to stay focused and committed on your goal. All that stuff is all part of discipline that I really developed a lot of in the Army. Pro wrestling is very, you're an independent contractor, so you got to make money stretch. You gotta hustle, and I learned both well, I learned a lot about it in the Army. You know, you learn a lot about hustling and making stuff happen, and you learn a lot, especially if you're an E3 like I was with a wife, and you're trying to make a dollar stretch. You know what I mean? Like you learn a lot of these kind of think outside the box traits that do apply to pro wrestling. So yeah, there's a lot mental wise and more mental than physical that applies to trying to make it in that industry.
What do you consider your greatest military accomplishment or your most meaningful experience, and why?
My okay, I got two answers to that question because I'm just gonna split them if that's okay.
Yeah.
Biggest probably my proudest military accomplishment was being nominated for the Bronze Stars in E3 for actions against the enemy, and my biggest accomplishment though was I laid the wreath at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier in July of 2017. So that being a pro wrestler, being through combat, and being able to do something as solemn as that was really really humbling, and is one of the moments that I'll never forget the rest of my life. So.
What was your experience with that? Like, how did that feel?
Um, it's weird because I've been to Arlington a few times, and it was weird to go there. And you know, you can go see the tomb and all that other stuff, and go see all these heroes of our country. And it was weird to like when you standing there waiting to cross that line where the sentinel, like you know, they escort you out there and all that other stuff. It's kind of you're going to a place that not a lot of people go. And to me, mentally, I'm going through my head, I'm like, don't fuck this up, don't fuck this up, don't trip on your feet, don't trip on your feet. You know, like trying not to scrub this moment. And you're sitting there like overlooking DC. You know what this represents is I can only it means different from somebody who went there not in the military and then going through combat and then going back there. So to go something as prestigious and important to our country as that Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, and laying the wreath, and you know the whole time thinking about my friends that I had lost and the people that have been injured and their lives changed because of the conflict and all that stuff. It's like it doesn't say it hits you hard, but it's like it leaves you so speechless internally and externally. Like there's nothing to say. You're just overwhelmed by emotion, by the men and women who have sacrificed so much for this country, and you know those who never came home, and you know all that other like internal feelings as you're you know at one of the like most I not say hallowed, but like one of the most important monuments in like our country. You know, it's kind of crazy, and so few people actually get to do it, and to be in on that list now is I mean it's just humbling. Like it'll always be humbling to me.
I really appreciate you describing all of that and going through it. I think one of the hardest things is to try to talk to a brand new recruit about respecting those who came before you and understanding the legacy and the sacrifices, and how we stand on the shoulders of those who came before us, whether we realize it or not.
That's true. That's
So,
very true.
I appreciate you talking about that, because I think it was really well said. Like I feel like I could take that and play it for somebody, and it would help them understand exactly what I
Awesome.
communicate to them about that. If you were meeting somebody that was brand new enlisting, what advice would you give them?
I would tell them keep an open mind. Try to make the best of any situation you're in. Roll with the punches, and it'll always be over sooner than later. Like at the beginning of my enlistment, I only did 4 years. At the beginning of my enlistment, I'm like, oh my God, I got 3 years left. But literally, like next thing I know, it was time to leave. And it's just, it goes by fast, and get the most of it. Like seriously. I was fortunate. I got stationed in Germany, and there was people who I was stationed with in Germany that wouldn't even leave the base. They didn't want to go explore Europe, and I'm like, this is stuff that people don't even get to do in their lives. Some people, like go make the best of it. Go see the world and go have these new experiences, and all that stuff. The Army's it's a unique opportunity, and there's good times and bad. But that's why I say just roll with it, keep an open mind, and get the most out of it.
It reminds me, I forgot to ask my brother, but my brother was Army, and I think he was in Bamberg around the same time as you.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I was trying to figure out what years it was that he was there, but anyway. What else? Oh, I would the advice that you gave for your new recruit, would you give yourself the same advice if you could go back in time to yourself re-enlisting, or would it be different?
Oh, absolutely.
It would be the same.
No, yeah, absolutely. That was as I mentioned, like I was very like I wanted a schedule, I wanted structure, I wanted to have that knowing what I was doing, feeling, you know what I mean? And when the Army made me kind of get loose with going with the flow, at first I was very resistant. I struggled with it. I didn't like it. But also nobody had kind of gave me that talk. And I would absolutely tell myself that, because it's not the end of the world with going with the flow. It's really, really not. And, you kind of going with the flow will lead you to adventures. It'll lead you to meeting interesting people. It'll obviously make you think outside the box a lot, which I think is a trait that is underestimated, like leaving military service. There's always that traditional like joke with the E4 mafia, which is an Army thing, about these E4 people who kind of like, hustle everything under the rug and avoid details and all the other stuff, and just think outside the box. And I think definitely having that motivational talk with me going into the service, I would have been easier to adapt with the Army being like, yeah, stay flexible. It's going to be an interesting 4 years.
Right. Yeah, but I think that's part of the value, honestly, of the military, is that it does surprise you and push you in ways that you wouldn't have done yourself. That's kind of part of the point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So how the people that are listening, you said that your documentary is on Amazon?
Amazon, yep, it's on Amazon. If you have Amazon Prime, you can watch it for free. If you don't, I think it's $7.99. It's a short documentary. It's only 42 minutes. Like I said, it's very indie. We're very proud of it. We are. I can talk about this on your thing because we've kind of opened up discussions on it. But we're currently talking about turning that documentary into a feature, and we're talking to a few companies about that. And we're currently in discussions about making a graphic novel with like a big comic book about the Valhalla Club and a specific adventure that we have. So that's upcoming stuff. But right now, yeah, you can absolutely go to Amazon, look up Valhalla Club documentary, and you'll see it. If you also go to the Comedy Central website and go to Klepper, they have our episode available to watch for free on there as well.
And if anyone's interested in following you on social media, how do they find you?
You can find me usually through the Valhalla Club documentary Facebook page. You can also find me. I have a side business of veteran and military clothing called Scars and Stripes. If you Google Scars and Stripes, you can find me on Facebook and Instagram there as well. That's the best ways to get a hold of me.
Well, awesome. Is there any stories that you like to tell people from your military experience?
Yeah, actually, I have a positive one that I like to share. I have this internal philosophy of 5 seconds of craziness, and I heard it actually was in the Army. It was just going after taking that opportunity 5 seconds of craziness making a decision can change your life. And some people equate it to like asking that guy or girl out, or going after that promotion, or saying F it, I'm going to go to college, or F it, I'm going to join the military. All that stuff is like, it's crazy because you just got to push yourself to say F it, I'm going to do it. And for me, when I was in Iraq in 2004, WWE was there doing their tribute to the troops, which is a yearly show they do all around these bases. And I was there, and I was talking to Eddie Guerrero, who's a very famous wrestler who unfortunately is no longer around. And we were just talking pro wrestling and all that other stuff. And I told him, when I get out of my Army contract, I want to go to WWE. Who do I got to talk to sell this? And he pulled this guy aside, and he says, tell him what you told me. So I gave him the elevator speech spiel, the 45 seconds. And he was kind of surprised. And he goes, okay, I'm going to bring you to another guy. So he brings us another guy, this tall guy. His name's John Laurinaitis. And John Laurinaitis is the guy who's under Vince McMahon, who owns all of WWE. So John Laurinaitis is like one of the top people in the company. And I just went for that 5 seconds of craziness, and I sold myself, and I told him this is what I want to do and all this stuff. And he was like, when you get out, he's like, I'll give you my cell number. You call me, and I will give you a tryout. He said, that's all I'm going to promise you, but I will give you a tryout. And 2 years later, when I got out, I called him, and he held his word, and they gave me a tryout on Monday Night Raw in front of 30,000 people to Arizona. Actually, go on TV, and I got to wrestle in front of 30,000 live and like 2.7 million people watching at home.
Wow.
And for being somebody, as I said in the beginning of this interview, being a WWE guy was like my dream since I was 4 years old. So when I'm backstage, like behind the curtain, thinking about 4-year-old Jan bouncing around furniture, driving my mom crazy trying to be Hulk Hogan, and all of a sudden going through college, going through combat, it's all just kind of builds up to like, fuck, I did it. I did it. Like, I got here. And going out there and putting on a fun show for the people watching at home. And it all came back to just that 5 seconds of craziness, just going, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go after it. I'm going to take my shot. So I hope your listeners, like, if they have an opportunity, just go for that 5 seconds of craziness. Just do it. Your life could change forever.
I love that so much. 5 seconds of craziness.
5 seconds of craziness.
Oh, it's like giving yourself permission to be a little crazy. Yeah, I like it. Awesome. Perfect. Thank you so much. I have really enjoyed having you on the show. Thank you for your time and your insight. You are an inspiration, and I just love seeing people that are courageous enough to talk about the difficulties of PTSD and the realities of what it takes to deal with that, to overcome it. Well, I don't know if overcome's the right word, right? How to navigate it.
That's probably the better way of navigating. Yeah. No, I honestly, I appreciate you having me on. Anything to do with being positive and helping people, I'm all about. So again, I'm sorry it took a little longer than expected, but I really am humbled that you selected me for this interview.
Well, thank you again, and have a great day.
Thanks. You too. Bye.
I hope you enjoyed this episode and found a new mindset to help you excel. For more information on Jan or his work, visit www.tamfpodcast.com/wrestle or one of his social media sites. The links are in the show notes.